Hey everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity.com. Gosh, I don't know if you guys are like I am, but when I think back to being a kid, preteen, at the very beginning when I really started listening to music other than Elvis, and listening more intently and discovering music on the radio, um, I remember I remember hearing a couple songs that every time I hear them to this day, I'll reach over and I turn up the radio just a little bit so I can hear it and remember all over again. And a couple of those songs are by, you guys will think, a band, but it's actually just a gentleman who went by the name Lobo. His real name is Kent LaVoie. And he did Me and You and a dog named Boo and I'd Love You to Want Me. And gosh, every time I hear those songs, it's just like I flash back what feels like 100 years and more like 50 or so. And that's what makes our generation fun and meaningful, and our music especially. We Kent and I talk about, and that's what this interview is my interview with Kent LaVoie. We just talk about the beauty of the music of our generation and how it serves as a benchmark, how the first few notes of a song can take us back in almost infinite amount of time, it seems like, and we can remember those things all over again. And Kent's music as Lobo is exactly that. And the reason why we talked is he's done some re-recording, remastering, and reissuing of a bunch of his music. He's big over in Asia, and we still love him here. So the opportunity presented itself for he and I to talk, and he just sat down in his living room, and I sat here in the Boomerocity office, and we just talked by Zoom and had the best time chatting with each other. A wonderful guy, full of good stories, and what a treasure he is to the musical soundtrack of our lives. So, without any further ado, here is the Boomerocity interview with Kent Lobo LaVoie. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care.
You may want to ask me, first time I ever heard Me and a Dog Named Boo, which was by far the big, changed my life. And you'll be really interested to hear that. It's a true story. And but it's real interesting from a radio person that obviously goes back a few years.
A few.
Yeah, don't we all? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, go ahead and tell me the story. It's a great way to launch this thing. Tell me about it.
Well, I had my producer, which that was a double-edged sword. It was all the good and all the bad that I had in the business. He was the whole package.
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, we had been to New York and we cut Me and a Dog Named Boo. And from the get-go, the song, everybody that heard the song said, this is a hit. And we went to New York, and another group showcased it, and everybody loved the song. They didn't care about the group. So we recorded it, and everybody loved the song, and it got a great review and all this crap. But you still, that means nothing except everybody likes the song. Right. Well, I was getting ready to go to the dog track because my night off from playing 6 nights a week in a band. And it was just dark, and the phone rings. And it's Phil Gernhardt, my producer. And he says, here's exactly what he said. It's a smash. And I said, how do you know? It had been out 2 weeks, or no, week. And I said, how do you know? He said, well, I told you that WLS in Chicago went on it. Now, remember back in the AM days.
Right.
And I said, yeah, I know. And he said, well, we got a order for records today. And I said, and we had a local hit one time, and we had 500 records that we had to give away, And I said, oh, well, how many records did they order? And he said, 20,000. And well, that's exactly what I did. And, it was such a shock. And he said, I got to go. I'll talk to you tomorrow. So here I am thinking, now, WLS goes on this record and they get an order for 20,000 records. Well, in Florida, you can hear WLS. It fades in and out. It was 760 or 7, way down to low end of the dial. And that's, right. the interference is a lot less down there. So I'm going down the road, and I'm kind of in shock anyway about what he has just told me. But that still doesn't mean they bought the records. It just means they ordered them. So, you always got this doubt in your mind. So I'm going down the road I fiddling with the dial. I said WLS. That's what it used to be, the big call word. Then you could hear this 50,000 watt station in Florida all the way to Chicago. So I'm going down the road, and sure enough, it's going on. And all of a sudden, it's WL goes away, it fades out. So I'm driving, and it must have taken another 5 or 6 minutes. It came, and I swear to God, it still tears me up. It faded back in on my song. It was I never had anything that affected me that much since or before. It was just an affirmation of everything. It was but it was hearing my little funny song all the way from Chicago to Florida. Wow. And it didn't finish. It faded out before it was over. And then it came back in and said, as they used to say back in that day, this is a group named Lobo, a new group named Lobo. Everybody thought it was a group, and I could have cared much less, so I let it go. But anyway, that's a true story how that happened.
Well, I don't think regular fans can fully appreciate a story like that because they don't, music has become so commoditized, and we can find whatever we want out there, and you guys aren't getting paid jack for streaming and such, but still, I mean, that is your sweat and blood that's put into a recording, and for it to come across, and especially in your case, when it's unexpected.
Well, I was looking for it, but there it was. I mean, it's like if I'd gone to Dog Track, which I did later on, and bet on the absolute long shot, and it had won. But anyway, but the only other thing is, in the same era or same period of a few days, New York calls me, the publisher, and said, "I want to play a song. I want to play your song. Somebody recorded it." I can't imagine. So it goes on, and it's real orchestrated. Dun, 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 dun. And it's my little guitar, like, wait, wait, wait. And there's Perry Como singing it. I like my other song, I about fell out my chair. I mean, and then later on, we did a golf tournament with Vince Gill's golf tournament in Chattanooga, I think it was. Anyway, and Perry was there, and I did a little story about that. And he's in his 80s, about my age now. And he waved to me from the class, and I was just, well, the next day during the golf tournament, I'm in the bathroom at a urinal with has that little board between them, everything. And here he comes shuffling in there, and he's standing next to me, and he kind of looks over, and I don't think he really knew that I was the one that did that. It probably couldn't even remember it. Anyway, I said, Mr. Como, I hope you didn't mind me saying something about my funny little song, the Dog Named Boo song that you recorded. And he's taking care of his business. He looks up at me and says, "Nice little tune, kid." I mean, that's the stuff I remember, that it was as important as anything, the rest of it. It's just funny.
Well, I'm going to jump ahead of this, but right now is a good time to ask this question instead of waiting on into the chat. But you've seen a lot of changes over the years in the music business. What do you think are the best and worst changes in the business? And if you think the business is broke, what would you do to fix it?
Well, it's funny. Think back when we were kids, and our grandmother and grandfather were saying stuff, and we were saying, "Are you out of your head?" And I don't know that the evolution of mankind, whether we like the direction it's going, it's evolving and it's going on. It's like, should a kid really have to learn a bunch of inane facts that he has more he'll ever know right on his phone? Does he need to learn all the facts? Because now, to express them to other human beings, that's another thing. But with the music, you remember my music, when I was top on the pop charts, I was still elevator music. I was the stuff that the adults listened to back then, and still am. So I never, Phil Bernhard, the producer I told you about before, was real smart. I did demos with the guitar and voice, and my records are almost the same as the demos with all the orchestra and the drums with it. So he didn't change it. I was real different because I didn't sound like anything else. My records still sound like demos with strings on it to me, because I remember the old thing.
Yeah.
But there was an honesty in the music, and I didn't even realize it about myself 2 years later. I thought I was just writing little fluff songs that didn't mean just what they needed, some album songs. Well, after 50 years and you listen back to them and you really realize that you bared your soul. You may not have been aware of it, but you did. You didn't. Some of the songs are contrived, and that's like anything. But most of the things that mean something were either about an emotional deal you were going through at the time, or something you got yourself in as a result of a line that you were writing a song about. You put yourself in that. But nowadays, and I hear this, and I tried. I lived in Nashville too for a time. I'm not a good co-writer. I'm a good co-writer if I send you a full lyric and you put the music to it. That's what Billy and I do.
Yeah.
I don't. It's hard for me to trade lines with, and but they just make everything so perfect and so the way they think it's supposed to be, and a lot of times it works. But whether they're going to remember these songs 50 years from now, I don't know. There's always great songs. There's great songs every time you turn around. There's always one out there. Right. Ed Sheeran, you talk about a genius, and you put him with what's her name? I can't remember her name. You know, the girl that can't do no wrong.
Adele?
Taylor Swift. Yeah,
oh, Taylor Swift.
Put them together singing a song. I mean, that's not fair.
Right.
That's not the rest of the world, Right. It gets a billion hits. Give me a break.
Right.
But those songs, those are artists, those are songs, they mean something. The anger in the music, and I'm not just talking about rap music. I'm talking about anger in music. I'm talking about anger in love affairs. I'm talking about anger about I hate the world. And they have to show it. Everything is extremes, and I was pretty much like this in the middle. I never was high and never was low. It was just like, hey, just letting go. I should have been a Taoist. Life is a stream. You get on it and float down the stream. And that's what. If I was religious, that's what I'd be. I'd be a Taoist because I believe that. So the change, as I said, Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift, and then there's Billie Eilish. I mean, come on, there's lots of great artists out there nowadays. But I tend to gravitate towards the way I did things because that's what I do. James Taylor was always the absolute best. I've seen him several times, and I've been playing guitar all my life. I have no idea how he does what he does. Yeah. The way he puts, just the oddest thing. And there were a lot of great singer-songwriters, Gordon Lightfoot, Fogelsong. I mean, on and on. Kenny Loggins. I mean, that live version of him doing A House at Pooh Corner just chokes me up every time I hear it. And he's just, these people are so good. You know what I mean? They've entertained their whole lives. They've stayed with it. And so to me, the bad is the anger and the absolute, you know what? We didn't even know what a gun was when we were a kid. Mm-hmm. The only time I ever heard of somebody shooting somebody was the Pontiac dealer in Winter Haven, Florida, caught his wife in bed with the salesman, killed them both with one bullet. He was a hero, We got them both right to the head, bam,
Efficient.
I never heard about a gun. No, I'm afraid to go down and walk my dog outside of the little compound where my condo is. So I don't like the anger in music. I don't like extremism. Everything has to be so drastic. It's uncomfortable to me. I don't. Now, old rock and roll, which we thought at the time was violent, good God. Now that's on the easy listening station with me. Yeah,
the elevator music.
Bon Jovi song. Here's an easy listening song along with Lobo. Give me a break, folks. He was like on top of the mountain, and I was down in the valley stringing my banjo. But it's strange, and so that would be my feeling about that.
Well, you've had a pretty busy year from what I'm seeing here with these remasters. Tell me the story about. I mean, I know you came out with some. You released 3 remasters back in October, right? And then you've got 3 out now. Tell me the backstory about all that.
Excuse me. Mm-hmm. What happened was about back in, it was actually, I think it was just at the end of 70, 79, 80, around there. I got an offer to go to Asia. And I don't tour. I'm not a big tourer. But the idea of going to Hong Kong, Singapore, that was fun. Got a band together, went over there and did a little tour. The first show I did in Hong Kong and outside with 5,000 people. I said, what? And it was 2 shows.
Wow.
And well, I didn't understand how big my music was in the Orient and all over that part of the world, India and Indonesia, all that. At any rate, and so as time went by and I would go back, they would offer me more money and more. It was not so much the money, but it was the convenience of 5-star hotels. You don't do anything. They fly you first class because they can't bump you off first class because you have to get there when you're booked to be there.
Right.
So it was like you want a trip to go to Singapore, and all I do is sing 3 little shows or something like that. So during that time, we were approached about making records, and I would pretty much just I'd asked to get out of the last thing with Curve organization. I didn't even want to do one more album. I just quit. I could. It's too much for me. I'm not that type. I'm not really an entertainer. Meaning, I want to be noticed, that kind of thing. And you need to be. They need to know who you are to be a big name entertainer.
Right.
But we got a deal and we released a deal and we had these masters, and then another one came up and they wanted the masters, and then because we had the money coming in to do the recordings well, not just schlock stuff. We did these using great musicians and big studios, everything. Somewhere along there, Billy Ertz, my partner in Nashville, who's been with me 50 years, he came up, said, we need to re-record your old masters because 7 years had gone by. Well, we redid them, but we redid them because I played all the guitars and Billy did a lot of the vocals. So there are a few drum things that aren't the same, but we basically I can't tell until it comes to the drum whether it's the remake or the original. So these are really good. Well, and then we had somebody wanted a Christian song, then somebody wanted. So we had this catalog, and all we did, the only ones that were tied up with the label fell apart in Japan, and they still owed us a lot of money. So we got those masters back too. But we had all these great masters. And this thing with Time Life came up through a friend talking about one of his artists, and we're talking about the money they're making. And he said, right, that's crazy. And I said, at any rate, we looked into it, and the people were real nice, real good people to work with. They're real open to doing things. Well, we kept looking in the vault and coming up with more songs. And when they kept more and more, they wanted anything that hasn't been seen. But and we rechanged the titles of some and may have made the lead song a different song. That was based on internet play of the other albums. We took the song that was the key song. And so we had this library of stuff, and now we have a place to use it. And it's for me, it's fun. I mean, it's like, my next birthday, I'll be 79, but then I'll be 80. Here I'm 80 years old talking to you about my music, which I never thought would last more than 6 months. And, 50 years later, it's a strange deal. And to delve back into that and then see the amount of listeners I have on Spotify, I'm looking at these figures. I said, what? I don't get it. And I compare mine to others, and I say, and then I remember, I'm big in Asia. Isn't this a beautiful system? The end user, so the guy selling tea on the street in Bangladesh, he hopes he makes $1 a day. He's still got a phone. They all got a phone. And he says, I want to hear that old Lobo song. All he has to do is go on that thing, push it, listen to it. The end user pays nothing. The advertisers pay the part you see, the little flip before it says skip the ad. It's a phenomenal concept. I expect that there's a lot of holes in it. There's a lot of, and I expect that they'll start plugging the holes up. And the major labels, I don't know exactly what's going on with that. My old masters and stuff, I have no control over, and so I just, like I said, we just do with what we have. But it's real fun because it's almost like it was back in the day. I mean, I do realize that I get a letter from a woman in England that wants me to come and move in with her, and she's young, she's only 68, and I said, can you drive still?
On
And
the
you
on
could,
the right side of the
that's right. My wife thinks that's the funniest thing in the world. She gets a big kick out of it. Uh, it's a strange world we live in, Master Jack. But that's
Well, it is. I mean, and to be able to do these kinds of things, I mean, the dynamic, the business model is changing. I mean, I'm kind of old school too. When I launched this site 13 years ago, I would record the phone conversation, I'd transcribe it, put it on the website, and that was that. And then, that's what I did for until almost 2 years ago. And then pandemic hits, and I kind of get drug kicking and screaming to do Zoom calls.
right.
And I'm like, holy crap, I wish I had this from day one.
Yeah,
I mean, I went from doing at most 25 interviews in a year to last year I did 70 that I posted. I mean,
gee,
it's phenomenal. If I had to do 70 interviews and transcribe them, I I would have
yeah.
killed myself. I mean, it was just insane. But the dynamic of technology and artistry coming together, and then bozos like me just putting it together and saying, hey, here's remember when, and here's what they're doing today. People love that. They want to see people like you and put the face with those songs that they always turn up when it comes on the radio, and they want to know what you're doing now and how's your life been and all that kind of stuff. But people eat that up, and I thank God for the technology, because it makes all those kinds of things happen. Yeah, they could have read it, but people don't like reading so much.
No, they don't mind reading on the screen, but they
Right.
don't. But much rather be told. You're right. It's easier.
Exactly.
This technology, where it really hit me the first time was when Billy and I were doing a lot of these recordings, and we did an album one time where I bought a Pro Tools set to do this album because we were going to do it ourselves, and I did everything. And the whole point of it was, I mean, it's one of the newest ones. It's on the website. It's called If I Could Do It Over.
Mhm.
And it's not, I would have re-recorded the songs in the studio this way. If I'd had the equipment back then, this is the way I would have made the demo to take to the producer to try to get a record deal. And that's what this is. Of course, there's synthesizers and stuff. But we were doing it one time, and Billy said to me, he called me up and said, listen, I'm working on that. He mixed them up in Nashville. He had Pro Tools up there. And he said, that song, he said, you used an electric guitar on the guitar part. And I said, yeah. I said the original record used an electric guitar. And he said, it's much more of an acoustic album. Try an acoustic. So I go in there, I pick one of the Martins up I've had for 50 years, and I pick it up, I mic it up, bring up the track, put on the headset, and it's just a down, 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 down. I play it. I fly the track to Billy. I just send him the track. He puts it in the mix, and an hour later calls me back with a mix with that guitar on it. You know what that would have cost us to do back in the good old days? 20
Yeah.
grand. And 20 grand back then was like $150,000. You couldn't do it. That's the bottom line. So it's phenomenal. What we're doing right now, just think, if you wanted to film me doing an interview, you would have had to come here, or I would have had to go.
Yeah.
And as you said before, it opens up, and more. The flower keeps getting wider and wider, and the petals aren't falling off yet. So who knows? It's fun.
What I find especially interesting too is that when I first launched this, one of the first interviews I did was with Sam Andrew, guitar player for Big Brother and the Holding Company.
Oh yeah.
And I sat with him outside this diner that was closed. It was up north of San Francisco somewhere. And it was literally one of the first interviews I did. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd be afraid and probably embarrassed to go back and listen to that audio today. But, he said something I never forgot. He passed away 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But he said, he goes, Randy, when we were doing this, we were inventing it. We were making this stuff up. He goes, now you have schools that crank out 500 kids a year that can play Hendrix as well as, if not better than Hendrix,
Better.
And yeah, and it's like, yeah, so things become, on one hand, yeah, the streaming affects income, and I get that, and I actually have developed an idea that I think taking current technology could pay people better on this stuff, and I'm going to put it in a white paper and put it out there for free so you guys can start making even better money, hopefully. But the thing that got me was that, even though the music has gotten commoditized to a point of being almost not worth doing because it's not paying, it can't pay the bills in a lot of cases, that doesn't mean that the value of what you've done has been minimized. Because I say it this way, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, will they be listening to, nothing against Justin Bieber, but will they be listening to him? 50 years ago, you recorded a song that people are still listening to today. They will turn up that radio and listen to what you're playing. And probably another 50 years from now, after we're dead and gone, people will still be doing that same thing. And I don't think the music coming out today stands up anywhere near as well as what you and your peers have done over the years.
Well, yes, there's truth to that, but there's also truth to the fact, and this, I tell you, you're going to really feel old. Okay, we're talking about going back 50 years. Now, go back 50 years in the early 70s. Go back 50 years from then, what we're talking about, you're talking about music from the 20s. Mm-hmm. Okay, we didn't listen to music from the 20s. You know why? Didn't have guitars in it.
Yeah.
Since guitars have become the thing, all music, the guitars have always been there, but now all of a sudden they're up in your face, and there's something about it. Even it has to be played right. It doesn't have to be great. It has to be correct for the music that you're listening to.
Right.
But that magic of that warmness, a piano does the same thing. The tracks, there are a lot of hit tracks like "Killing Me Softly" with his song with just a piano, just her singing and a very light thing on her voice, nothing else. There's always, when I try to talk to a person, a non-business person, I live in a condo that has a building here in Fort Myers, has 160 units. Most of them were professional people. They know I something to do with songs. They don't really know, but when they talk to me and want to know about music, all of a sudden, it's almost like you go from speaking English to speaking Japanese, because you're talking about things that they have no concept of, and they don't understand, nor do I, nor do you, the magic of music.
Mm-hmm.
Tune. Go back to the Vivaldi is one. It's just the Four Seasons. It's just phenomenal. And it's always been that way. Back from when a guy was sitting on the rock thumping his foot and singing, and all of a sudden somebody sing the same song with him. It's a world that doesn't exist in the average person's mind. It takes them to that place. Mm-hmm. They don't know how they got there. I say, every time I hear Brandy, "You're a Kind Girl," I see the picture of that girl walking by herself down the thing, down to her apartment, and going in a cat suite. It's amazing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Okay, you take my song, "I'd Love You to Want Me," which was my biggest song by far. It was being pitched before they put it out on me, and the Hollies liked it. They didn't like a line in it, okay? They want to change the line and take part of the writing, of course. Now, this is the story I was told. It may not be true. But at any rate, I had rewritten the song 3 times, and Phil and I had been over it and over it. And we'd already started the recording. And I said, listen, this would have been the follow-up to "Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress," which is a...
Oh, wow.
Wow. Now, my song, "I Love You Want Me," was #1 everywhere in the world with me singing it. What would have been with the Hollies? So I understood the risk. But the line they didn't want in there was, Not it's, you'll probably, when I get to it, you'll probably, when I saw you standing there, I about fell out my chair. And when you moved your mouth to speak, I felt the blood go to my feet. They didn't get that. The blood goes to my feet. I should have said blood drains of my head, but didn't rhyme with feet.
Right.
But that made them feel uneasy. Okay. It's something about it they didn't like. Okay. That's one of the things we liked. And that's been commented that line for years. And it's that's Southern. I said when I about fell out my chair. When Liza Minnelli cut my song, she said I fell off my chair. You know, I fell off my. I didn't fall out of the chair. I fell off my chair. Up yours. You know, whatever. But you know, if you wrote it from the heart and you sang it from the heart, that's the best way for it to come out.
That's right.
But the average person, their eyes kind of glaze over when you start talking about that you wrote a certain song that they're familiar with, and they don't know why. They can't. You know, a guy once explained to me about religion, and it isn't his thought. It came from some philosopher somewhere. They said the average person that is overzealous, needs to go to church and needs to talk to his preacher and needs to talk to people about spirituality. A lot of those people cannot accept the fact that they can't understand it. Their mind won't grasp. It doesn't make sense. I can't. There is no explanation for this. And so if somebody doesn't tell me something, I'm going to go crazy. And that stayed with me over all these years. And it's like, and music is sort of like that. You can't, there's no, it's just a weird, I mean, even back in my old day when I used to sing in clubs just to go to college and stuff. And at the time, I didn't realize it until years later. I would play in a band and I would be the one that would get up and I would sing a ballad, you know, look at me, I'm as helpless as a kitten. The whole room would get quiet. Everybody, they all start dancing, but they get quiet. And it wasn't they all cheered for me at the end of the song. It was, there's something that I had in my voice, which proved to be true when I started recording, that sucks you in, you know, that takes you to that place. And that's the part I can't explain. No one that's ever been in this business can explain it. What music does, it just takes you to where you want to go, you know, good or bad. You know, it might remind you of divorce, but hey, what do you got to do?
Learn from the lesson.
Yes, yeah.
Was there, when you were putting all this together, these re-releases, these remasters, were there any surprises that came about from this?
Meaning surprises that they sounded different, or
maybe in putting it together, something kind of developed a you know, like sometimes I'll talk to people and they say, yeah, I dusted Clifford, Cosmo Clifford from Creedence Clearwater. He recorded a bunch of stuff long time ago, you know, 40, 50 years ago, and he rediscovered it, putting them out there. In fact, he's probably got one coming due sometime that I need to talk to him about. But there's always like a surprise, and with his stuff is like, wow, it sounded both classic and new all in the same, you know, all.
Well, because it was.
Pardon me?
It was classic and it was new.
It was his stuff, but he didn't. Yeah, it was classic and brand new. Yeah, he recorded it then, releasing it now. So yeah, you're right. But
this was a kind of a running, rolling ball as it went along. We would get a request to do something here, and then we get a request to do that, like I said, these Christmas songs, and that was 5-6 years ago. Now all of a sudden this year, as a result of being on this channel, they're starting to get a lot of it. Not a lot, that's relative. Several, you know, 20,000 listens. That sounds like a lot, but it really is nothing. You know,
not in the music business, unfortunately. Yeah.
But the point of it is that there were very few discoveries. What we discovered by this process is what song do we make the title of the group. Like Billy Airts, once again, my partner in Nashville, wrote a song called Faithful. Mm-hmm. I recorded it when he played it for me, and he was kind of sheepish about it because it was kind of a wishy-washy song. And he sang it to me, and I said, "That's great, Billy. I'm going to record it just the way it is." He said, "Well, we need to." I said, "You don't need to do anything. Just leave it alone." And that gets. I think we've had 9 or 10 million hits over the last 10 years of that thing. And that's the title of one of these groupings of songs,
Right, right.
and it's one of the most played. It's a wedding song. It's a wishy-washy song he wrote about his wife Stormy. And when I sang that song, Billy was working that day, and I was in there with the engineer by myself. I sang that song. I got warmed up, and I sang it from the get-go to the end. Not only that, I sort of had control of my vibrato going down, and I always had trouble. I just kind of let it go, whatever. This sounds, and it has the most fantastic harmonica break in it. Terry McMillan, who died a few years ago,
Yeah.
just awesome virtuoso on the harmonica. And if you got time for that, listen to a song called Faithful, and just listen to the harmonica on it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But that's the thing that we did not expect, nor did Billy. And when we did a little thing for Time Life, when we were doing this kind of thing at home, I said, I'm going to do. I said, let me change that. I'm going to have Billy sing this song for, because he wrote it and he sang it, and he sang it real soft, and he really sings like Roy Orbison most of the time. and it was the reality of this is a heartfelt song he wrote about his wife, and all over the world, people get married to this song because it's a, I'll be faithful forever to you, because that's what I am. But at any rate, I go on sometimes, as you can.
That's all right. I love it.
Old men always do
that. Hey, I'm right behind you, man. So, so am I misunderstanding? Are these going to come out in disc, or is this strictly available on for download, or just strictly streaming? What are these packages? How are the?
I
get people to help you make.
I don't know. I honestly don't. This is what we did this for. The licensing to them is for streaming and whatever. It's like I said, I buy these cars and have all this fancy stuff and have this big fancy motor, and I say to this car salesman, he opens the thing up and looked at it, I said, that's the first and last time I ever want to see the engine. I don't want to know why things work. I don't want to know. I don't understand it. I love them, but I don't want to. And it's the same way with marketing and how to sell. And I'll tell you an idea. Speaking of things we don't know what we do with it. Paul Overstreet, one of the best country writers ever. Mm-hmm. Billy Airts he works with Paul all the time, and I've been with Paul. I've played at one of his golf tournaments, everything. And we're going to work a trio thing, where he's going to sing some of my hits and I'm going to sing some of his hits, and we're going to try to do it. And I say this tongue in cheek, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, because that ain't possible. But 3 singers singing known, it's going to be. We're all looking forward to doing it, because we can do it. Paul has a studio, Billy has a studio, I have a guitar, so there you go. We're ready to go. But and Paul's enthusiastic about doing it too. So that's in the works, So I go back up to North Carolina in the middle of April, and that's just 5 hours to Nashville. I don't fly anymore.
Going out 40,
yeah, that's right. I go down through the gorge, through Murphy and down through the gorge, and where they had the Olympics and stuff, and then through Chattanooga and go over that way.
Oh,
it's
okay.
Oh God, tell you. Oh, you don't even know about it. Anyway, I went over the last time to do some stuff for Billy when I did this film, and I have real bad eyes. I almost lost one of them already, and the other one I've had some surgery on, and I shouldn't have driven. Well, I only took one car to the mountains with me, and both the cars we have are the same kind of cars. They have the same everything on them. They're different models, but it's the same brand. So I went to rent a car, and they were going to give me either a BMW or a Mercedes, because I've had those over the years, even though I don't have those now. They're easier to drive. So I go to get it. I have to have one with all the equipment on it, right? And what do they have? A Dodge van. Oh. That's all they had. Well, I go over there, and it's raining. Oh, man. It was the worst trip I've ever had driving. But I went down that trip to Nashville. That's when I decided I better not be driving without getting my eyes working. Well, I had the surgery I had to have. It's getting better. Whatever. No, just another thing.
Boy, we're that's part of our generation here. We, some things work great and other things we wish they did.
Did you outlive your father?
No, actually I live next door to him. He is he's a healthy guy for he'll be he's coming up on 86. And
Okay, so I mean, the chances are you'll probably live longer than he will. He did, because I don't care what you've had wrong with you. Every day we're getting ways to
yeah,
make things better, And so it's like, golly, I better not spend all my money. I may live too long. Come on,
that's true.
I'll live in a cardboard box somewhere,
What's on your agenda for the next year or so? What do you got planned musically?
I just what I'm telling you. You don't understand. I have been over the last 50 years, from me and a dog named Boo. A couple of years there, I probably did. I don't know. I don't think I have done a total of 150 shows in 50 years total.
Okay.
I don't tour. I They wanted to do a cruise or something, and I said, Billy, I'm not going to go have to rehearse a band and all this crap. If they want you and I to go out there and do our little 2-man thing, we'll do that. But I don't plan musical things. I don't seek them. I've never had Billy's my manager. He's my producer. He's my co-writer. He's the road manager when we used to. He does everything. I don't. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you what happened. Back to Phil Garnhart, my original producer. When we first started working together, and he had Snoopy and the Red Baron, and then he had Abraham Martin and John by Dion, who's not Dion's a nice guy. I've spent some time with him. He said to me one day, he said, listen, he said, he says, you're an okay singer. He says, you can do what has to be done. Nobody's going to ever give you a hit song. You're not good enough. So the only way you could ever, this is the way this guy was, the only way, rather than encourage you, beat you down, and look on Bertie Higgins' first album and see what it says at the bottom of the back thing about Phil Garnhart, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Okay.
It says a little louder. Phil Garnhart may have taken my cherry, but he didn't take my spirit. This is the guy I had to deal with, and this is it's sad. Yeah, there's a book about him. It's just heartbreaking. He's just a sad guy. But I didn't want to do things. I didn't seek to do things. I don't do it now. This thing kind of fell in our lap, but we were prepared for it, even though we didn't know we were. We had all this catalog of stuff that we owned, and we could do what we wanted with it. And we can adapt it now. We can change it around. We can do other things. And we can re-record things now that we have the process, know the people in Nashville, know how to do it for literally nothing. I mean, speaking of in terms of what it would have cost. And there is nothing that I do. Now, I got sidetracked. What Phil Garnhart said to me when he said, you're okay singer, he said, you got to write if you want to make it in this business. And, over the years, because I had 2 worldwide big hit records, that enabled me to say no. And that's all that money means to me. It's not to be able to say, yes, I want to buy this. I don't want it. I don't want it. I didn't want it. I never wanted it. But I don't want somebody saying, you owe me $300. You're going to sing your song at the Holiday Inn this weekend and pay my money. I know that's kind of soft coat and everything, but basically that was my whole goal. My whole goal back when interest rates were 10%, I used to make 10 grand a year in the local band, which I could live on. Great. I said, if I had $50,000 in the bank at 10%, I'd have 50% more income. Not even doing anything. That was my goal. That was my financial goal. And because I was so afraid I'd end up back singing at the Holiday Inn, well, I maxed out my retirement account every year. It was so you're not going to catch me asleep. You won't catch me on the yacht, but you won't catch me in a boat without a motor, you know.
Right.
And so I don't. That's a kind of long way to get around, which us old people tend to do. It seems I don't have plans other than what falls in my lap.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with Paul and Billy, yes, we're going to see that. Billy's doing Laura Bertan, I think her name. She was one that America's Got Talent.
Mm-hmm.
She's a little girl that sang opera. Billy's had her in Nashville, cut 4 tracks on her, and so he'll be busy for the next couple of weeks. But then we're gonna by that time I'll be up in the mountains, and then we'll get Paul and we'll do like what we're doing. We'll sit around and figure out how we're gonna do. You know, I mean, I'm gonna do You Say It Best and You Say Nothing at All, and believe it or not, Forever and Ever, Amen. And I could sing on Randy Traver's track with me singing, it wouldn't sound country. So I don't have to try to fake it. I just sing it the way I sing it. Paul sings Me and You, a Dog Named Boo, and it'll sound like the legitimate country hit it was anyway when Stonewall Jackson. But I'm just going to take it as it comes, you know, as long as it doesn't upset my life the way it goes, or my wife. I'll go along with it. But it's like I said to Billy, Billy, you know, you're going to start getting calls from Asia again. And then they pay ridiculous amounts of money now. And I said, I'm not going to do it for money. That's not my point. I enjoy going over there because the people appreciate it. They know every song I ever recorded. They sing every song. And it was real rewarding. And that's the only time I ever was on stage that I felt like I fit in. But just, you know, whatever comes. If it's, I'm not going to tour. If I put it this way, I said, Billy, yeah, we'll do shows. Here's my criteria for that. I have to be able to drive there from the place in North Carolina. It's a pretty big circle.
Right.
I said, I'm not doing more than 2 shows a week, and I'm not doing any more than 10 shows a year. So you knock yourself out getting that, you know. I don't. Yeah.
Well, when you and Paul and Billy do this next album and it gets close to coming out, let's you and I talk again. Let's get the others on the phone too. We can get you all together and let's talk about the album.
Randy, if it happens, I'll remember. And I tell you, if you put a note, I'm not very well organized. I'm just not that, and it's not because I don't. I care that you asked. You know what I mean? I appreciate that. But if I didn't notify you, it wouldn't be because I didn't want to notify. It's because I never thought of it.
Yeah.
So if you'll send me, you know, just a real quick thing, you know, how's the Paul deal doing? Until we get together and sit around Billy's little studio and take the guitars out and start singing these songs and then record it, see how they play. They may not work at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say Paul wouldn't sing my songs and I would sing his song. It's just it broadens his base, possibly in Asia. It sticks me a little bit in the country door, but I don't really fit through that door anyway. So, I mean, you know, I had 2 top 5 country hits, one with Christy Lane and one with Stonewall Jackson. So, I mean, I've been there, and I produced Joe Stampley was the top 5 hit. So, I mean, I've been involved some of it, but
right.
Now, I went to Nashville to do that, and I got with Bob Montgomery, a great producer. I thought he was going to do a country album on me. He did a R&B album on me, and I had a song called "Where Were You When I Was Falling in Love," and he schmaltzed it up so bad, I hated it. And it was #1 adult contemporary. It was a fairly big hit, but it's not the way I would have heard it doing for me. Right. A lot of saxophones and crap on it. But I, you know, who knows?
Well, if I hear about this album coming out, who should I reach out to try to set the interview up? Same person on this one, or no?
Yes, because she would coordinate getting this set up. That's Brooke, not Brooke, Jolynn.
Yeah,
her name's Jolynn.
Yeah, Jolynn.
And listen, Randy, I appreciate you having the interest to talk to me. You know, it's like I feel like the Phantom. You know, Ghost Who Walks. You don't know over the years how I was criticized for not doing press and not putting myself out there. One of the last albums I did with Gernhardt, I think, I don't remember what the name of it was. Anyway, they did a review and they said this is another well manufactured Lobo project, blah 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 blah. But this is probably going to put an end to his career because of his lack of doing what he needs to do to get it done, or something to that. And he was right. I completely. I was offered a deal when I was in L.A. at Mike Kirk's house on the hills overlooking with his butler serving us breakfast. He offered me a career that would have elevated me enormously. And Mike is a wonderful guy, nice guy to talk to. And I told him honestly, Mike, I have done as much as my psyche will allow me to be. When I start believing the crap that they write about you, and you start treating people differently than you'd like to, all of a sudden, for me, it was time. I said, I appreciate it, but thanks, but no thanks. And I turned around, went back to Florida, and didn't do anything for 10 years, probably. It's just, I'm not geared for that.
Understood.
So I'm sitting in the dark room talking to you. You're easy to talk to because you've done this a lot of times in the years. I can do this. But if I'm in a press conference, like when I do those tours overseas, it drives me crazy. Do you have a dog?
And those are I don't like those either. I've been in a couple, and
Sure.
I like this comfortable, coffee, kitchen table chat type of thing. And it's
really, and that's what people want, I believe. Yeah, I really do. And then you can chop it up, and we've been rattling on for an hour. You haven't got time for all that, but I enjoy talking to you, and if there's anything I can do, I'm available and don't mind doing it.
Like I said, it's you and your songs have a key place in what I call the soundtrack of our youth, and that I don't take that lightly. Some people will say, "Oh, one-hit wonders or three-hit wonders, whatever." No, that's not what it is. It's important music is what it is. And if it can, to what you were saying earlier, if it takes us instantly back, and that's the beauty of music. You hear the first few notes of a song, and it can take you back 50 years, 60 years, take you to your first love, take you to the death of a loved one, take you to the birth of your kids, whatever, key events, or just a beautiful period in your life. That's important. And that
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I over the years, especially when I'm just in some place that, of course, nobody would know who I was from Adam anyway. But for whatever reason, one of my songs, one of the ballads would come on. Me, I don't think it was a little different, but the rest of all the other ones I had were ballads. And if you can see a waitress and she's over there wiping the table, and the song comes on, and all of a sudden you see her kind of slow down the wipe and just kind of, not look out into but she's there. I don't know what it reminds her of, but she may not even know the song, but it's still that magic. It's just, I don't know. I can't.
You hit on something that I think, even, believe it or not, exemplifies the whole thing, or hits on the whole thing. A lot of people, I would say even a majority, a bare majority of people, slightly over half the people, they know a song, but they don't know the song. They might not know the title. They may not know who sang it. They may remember when they heard it, and they remember where it takes them back to. But that doesn't make the music any less important. They'll go, "Oh yeah," I'll tell people, "Oh, I'm interviewing so-and-so." They go, "Who's that?" And I'll say, "Such and such song." They still, you can see the wheels kind of turn, and then I use a line from the song. "Oh yeah,"
Yeah, I've lived with that for 50 years. No, really, and I don't resent people not knowing it one bit. Even, hey, back when I had #1 records everywhere, nobody knew who I was, and so that was by choice. It wasn't like I hid, but yes, I did. But the magic for me will always be that I emotionally move someone with the words. The melody and the voice and all that other is just part of it. Yep. But it's what it says, and the melody takes you there. Mm-hmm. But the words stick with you, and just like the blood goes to my feet. There's some reason or other, there's something odd about that. And that whole song, I Love You One, they didn't know what exactly, who it is, what was the obligation she made for the title they gave, you know. And it's the only song I ever wrote like that. That was just kind of all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I get asked about that. Of course, it was the biggest song, but it's just, it's a strange world. You know,
Yep.
it really is. My world is strange.
Yeah, mine is too, believe me.
Yeah.
Well, Kent, this was an honor. Thank you for all the years of great music that helps us remember our past and helps benchmark it. And you're a great man. Love your music, and my door's always open to you. If you've got something else coming down the pike, let's set one of these up and talk about it so fans can hear about it. Okay.
Okay, Randy. Listen, I enjoyed talking to you.
Likewise. Take care and stay safe.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.